about it. I was ahead of them. I was already in the air on a helicopter flight, trying to get as much intel as I could on this incident before these guys were driving back up. A lot of them had already gone to Sea Lake. So anyway, I do know a few of you guys in the folks in the audience. What I'd like to do is just kind of give you where we're at right now. Again, the Type 3 team that Paul mentioned, they've done a lot of good work. They've set us up for success. We were able to hit the ground running when we got here. So pretty seamless. Yesterday they were, again, Paul talked about that, but a little understaffed. So we came in, we got our folks on the ground, and we took over operational control. We took the ball and started moving forward with the plan. I wish the map was bigger. I'm sorry. I know some of you guys in the back here. But I'm going to start on the heel here. On this heel, that's all holding really well. As we know in this valley, fires move from the southwest to the northeast. You look at the old fire scars. This fire is doing the same thing, moving to the northeast. The line that the Type 3 team had put in, the two previous Type 3 teams had put in, that's holding really well. With the winds we had the last couple days, we expected some large growth, and it did move. But yesterday, even with that, the way the column was, the way the wind was, the column actually shaded itself out and it didn't progress like we thought it had potential to do, but it didn't move as far as it could have yesterday. So even today, we're real happy with the footprint that it's in. Right now, we're trying to look at this. If you guys know the terrain out there, it's a lot of old growth. There isn't a lot of logging units out there. They're trying to connect those dots to see where they can put line in and get the smallest box possible on this. They're moving around. There's a little bit of a crux in here, some heavy fuels, some steep slopes. A lot of it were reduced with some of what we call Type 1 crews, hotshot crews. There's a lot of fires still going on. There's a new one that broke in Plains. There's a couple other fires going on, so resources are strapped. We saw Washington just broke out with some new fires. So we're still trying to get some resources so we can get boots on the ground. There's some places where mechanized equipment won't be able to get to. But we're going to move around this, looking for opportunity as we come around here, and things are looking real well. We did put some lines in, contingency lines up in there, some structure protection. Probably tomorrow or the next day, we're going to pull those folks out with the favorable weather. We're going to start getting direct as possible on this section of the fire. So you'll see some of this equipment move closer to the fire's edge. Again, hopefully the weather, as we know, they called for a couple inches, 1 inch. We're still down to like 3/4 of an inch, but we're still hoping that weather comes. I'll skip out here in the front. Lincoln later, if he has any, if you have any questions that he can answer, he can jump on those. But we're also still looking at the community of Olney. There's a lot of opportunity in there. You know, upper Stillwater, lower Stillwater. There's a lot of tributaries in here, and then just a lot of land, state land, with Stoltz land, Forest Service land, connecting those cut units, expanding those roads. So we're not forgetting about this. Even with the weather coming, we want to set things up here in the next couple of weeks. We get a dry spell. So we're going to continue enlarging some of these contingency lines, connecting those roads in here, so we have basically some sort of line to help protect Albany there. Excuse me. This is going to be the tough part in here. As you guys know, Martin Creek, pretty steep road, pretty steep valley in there. But the one thing you've seen, and even these maps in here, we can talk to those a little later, there are a lot of old cutting units, there's a lot of new cutting units, and we're going to connect those in there. Lincoln and some other folks. But we feel confident we can start right up in here, start moving to the east, and get as close as we can to that. Along with that, though, we are thinking big picture too. We're going to start clearing this road, doing some fuel breaks, brushing those roads out, and looking at other areas that we could possibly connect those and give us more opportunity. The other thing you'll see out there is we have a night operation. With a lot of the fuel breaks they're doing, feller bunchers, skidding those trees, those roads are tight. So we do have a night operation. We have the day folks that are out there, and then at night, these guys come in and start pulling those logs in and decking them. There's 2 decks we have out here in some areas, but the roads are too tight to do the day operations with the engines, the suppression efforts, and then trying to get logs out of there. So there is a 24-hour rotation of folks going on there. Again, going back into values, I just want to hit on that just real quick. what we're doing is trying to keep this, again, from the community of only all the private structures out here. And what we've identified is that highway corridor being, it's got the power lines, feed all of you guys, feeds all of Eureka. We got the gas lines in there, we got the highway. Keeping that highway open is paramount for the community here. We also have the BNSF railway in there, keeping that going. It's a big community. We just need to keep that going. But also, obviously trying to keep this to the smallest footprint as possible. We also know we got state timberlands, we have Stoltz timberlands, of course Forest Service timberlands. So we're gonna try to make good, smart decisions while we're doing that, while we're trying to get as small as possible. There's some spots where we're gonna have to give up a little bit and come out a little bit where it makes sense, better ground. But ideally, again with this weather, we're set up to get this thing as tight as possible on that. I think I'll end there. We'll have questions later. Again, I just wanted to fill you in on what was going on. The one thing I want to hit on, we didn't fly aircraft today with the smoke that was there, with everything that was going on. We tried to get a helicopter up, a Type 1 helicopter, a bigger one. We just weren't able to fly today. Yesterday we threw scoopers or the retardant planes until we couldn't. Gust to 40 miles an hour yesterday, got a little unsafe. The scoopers flew as long as we could fly them. They were dipping at a dicky. I don't know if some of those folks saw that. They were flying a lot. And then the helicopters, again, they're maxed out around 30, 35 miles per hour winds. We flew them as long as we could until we had to shut them down. But again, the fire did, hopefully not as run like it had potential to, but it did make a good push yesterday. So anyway, that's our plan. I'll leave it at that, and then who's up next?
I'm kind of loud, so everybody hear me? Okay, my name is Brian Hain. I'm the sheriff, coroner, and OES director, all wrapped into one to serve this community in the county of Flathead. So, sheriffs have a lot of difficult decisions to make every day, and I can tell you this is kind of the buildup of what we have. The original day that we kind of got notified, the fire ran roughly a mile and a half. And so there was kind of this indication. I asked myself a lot of questions when we were talking about evacuation, because it affects people's lives, is what do we want to do? And I can tell you, my theory on that is as a resident or a homeowner, I want to know as soon as I possibly can. So a lot of times pre-evacuation is how we start that. And that's kind of the information, like, hey, I always kind of think within a couple of days that could hit a structure or a home or your home. And we want to give you as much time as possible to give that information to you, to give you every opportunity to get whatever you need to prepare your items or your home the best we can. We give you information on some things that you could possibly do to your structure. But again, it's so that we can get that best case. Then there's this person called the weatherman. And I'm not going to pick on him too much, but it's an ever-changing environment, right? It's very tough to predict weather in northwest Montana, as I found out from fires and floods and everything else. So relatively the next day, we start reading this weather report, and it says we're going to get 20 to 25 mile an hour constant winds and 40 mile an hour gusts. My job is public safety. I don't want to put anybody, have the ability to, if I can provide the information to them to get them out, that's my best opportunity. So a decision was made, and I'll kind of go over that. The highway corridor was probably my primary concern. A heavy running fire at 25 to 40 miles an hour, we don't have much time. Good Creek was my secondary choice. The reason I made that is we could have cut access off to Good Creek. It wasn't like the whole community was probably going to be in jeopardy, but we were looking at some significant wind changes the following day, which would have ended up pushing the wind in a different direction. So again, we pulled the trigger on that. The other one we had to consider is how long do you think it takes to notify 200 residents in an area with 6 people? Because that's what I had. It takes a while. So the sooner that I can make those decisions and pass that on and get that activated, the better off we have. I will tell you this, we live in the great state of Montana. We don't remove anybody. But we're going to tell you this is the information we have, and we're going to do every opportunity to get back to you. But when we pull the evacuation, we're trying to tell you that the possibility is there. I can tell you there's a lot of decisions. I was on the last fire, and I think I actually made it rain because I ordered a pre-evacuation, and about 4.5 hours later, it rained a ½ an inch. But again, that's kind of hopefully what we're looking at in these scenarios. I think our firefighters, our aircraft people, I will say I watched one of those skippers go across the lake the other day, and they've gotten a lot more guts, I can tell you that. They were doing excellent work to keep this fire in check, and I think that's why we're standing here today and not seeing fire on our ridge tops above our homes and structures. The other concern I have when I look at that evaluation is how far will these embers go and land on something in front of it, right? It kind of can throw a big cast, and we didn't know if this was going to be a column, and so we want to get those people in front of it. The reason I didn't evacuate the town of Albany was this, is the best information I had was that it was probably going to go kind of in a northeasterly direction that day, and then we had about 24 hours before it pushed south, and it was kind of, Albany was sitting in this pocket outside of that. Not to mention I would displace a lot more concentrated residents, and the ability to evacuate that many structures with 6 people again was kind of that last ditch effort. But I can tell you as a sheriff's office, we called on a lot of help. Yesterday you had people from Ravalli County here, you had Lincoln County, you had your U.S. Forest Service LEOs and us all teamed together trying to work as fast and the best we can to do that. I guess to close out, here's my perception on all things. I'm a very, each person counts in this county. And I want to give you guys the best information, but I ask myself this: what would I want if I was sitting in anybody's shoes and looking at this? And I can tell you, I've had a barn burn down. It's an awful experience, right? And I can tell you that in discussing that, if you think about trying to make a decision in 20 minutes of what you're going to take, or having 2 to 3 days to decide what you're going to take, I'll take the 2 to 3 days any day of the week. So, again, I'm here for questions, but again, I wanted to give you my perceptions of why we have that. And then just advise, currently the evacuation is from the county line to just north of Albany, and then from Albany to the end of Good Creek. We are evaluating tomorrow to possibly lift that evacuation. We'll probably leave everybody in the pre until we can kind of make sure that the weatherman is guaranteeing this rain, and then we can definitely look at the next step in that process. So again, thank you guys for coming tonight. But again, I just want to give you my perception and some of the decisions that were made behind the scenes probably that you didn't know. So thank you.
So our next speaker, he's going to introduce himself, but if you can hear me, his name is Tom Lane.
I'm Tom Lane. I'm the emergency manager for Lincoln County. So I worked again with the team. We got called in about 2 days ago as it was starting to get warm, and we put the plan together as it stood. The sheriff from Flathead there assisted us and kind of maintained control, and we provided support through Darren Short and his officers. Came up and they provided that initial warning that went out to the 25 residents over there on the Straightener side. As conditions changed, we didn't feel like it was going to go that way, so we were very happy with the work that was being done. We did want to make sure that we were watching it, and we did continue to watch it, and as I'm watching it right now, we put a plan together to make warnings available to everybody as they're needed. We talked with Lincoln Electric and made sure that we have a subsequent plan if it was going to impact the Lincoln County area north, because we all know that power line feeds everything up through, as it was said earlier. So we have a plan in place, and if that ever came to fruition, which we hope it will not, and they're doing a great job to keep it from going there, we have plans in place, and we'll notify everybody if that condition changes. The big emphasis from myself in Lincoln County from the emergency management standpoint is that you all are registered in Code Red. That is our primary notification system. I know a lot of people up here have landlines. It will call landlines too. They will do reverse 911, but it also sends out text messages, emails, and SMS. It pushes it to our Facebook page, and it also pushes it out to the Lincoln County webpage. So if there's any question on information, whether something's going on from that perspective, I try to give people as many different options as they can to find that out. I know some people don't do social media, so that is why our webpage is directly available. We work together very closely to make sure all of our messages are in line. We're following exactly what the Forest Service is doing and what the IMT team is doing, and we're trying to say that same information to everybody so we're all on that clear page as we move forward. But if you have any questions about that or how we can prepare in advance, just let me know, and I'll be here to fill you guys in on it. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Seth Carpenter. I'm the district ranger out of Eureka. Can everyone hear me all right? All right. I'm not going to talk too long. A couple of things I just want to point out, make sure everyone understands. As we're looking at these fires, this one specifically, but all fires, we're looking at life safety first, and that's looking at the safety for our firefighters and the public. And that is paramount to us and where we start. And secondly, what we're trying to do right now is basically the best thing we can do is stop this fire before it gets to the values that could be threatened. We're going to be prepared for if that happens, and that's working with our county partners and everybody else. We're going to be prepared for that, but our first goal is to stop it before it gets there. We're very lucky to have one of the most professional firefighter or incident management teams in the country here right now. They're going to do a fantastic job for us. I know that. A lot of them are locals, and that makes me feel a lot better. They know what it's like around here. They know what needs to be done. And I've got a high degree of confidence in that. So that doesn't mean that the fire may not get the better of us on any given day, but we've got the best people out there to manage it. And we'll take questions a little later. And I know not everyone's going to want to ask a question in front of the main group. We'll stay here until the last person's done asking questions. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Heidi McRoberts, the Deputy Forest Supervisor here in the Kootenai. I've been here since about January of this year, so fairly new to the community, but it's great to see the showing of everybody that came out tonight, especially with the short notice. Thanks to our incident management team for putting this public meeting together. They just came in yesterday and got information out, and it's obvious that it got out to everybody for a good turnout that we had tonight. So appreciate everybody showing up, and I'll pass off to Bill.
Good evening, everyone, and I gotta tell you, I'm not a loud talker, so I'm gonna do my best. I hope I don't lose my voice, and I don't know if I really want to use the microphone. How about that, Val? If I get better, I'll try it. Please stay with me, and I'll do my best. I too just came over from the Ridge Fire. I was released from that fire. We heard the situation here going on with the Eastport Fire, and I was managing that fire over there as an agency administrator on the Ridge in Hungry Horse. And I can tell you that when we had our community meetings there, we had several of them, and there absolutely was a common theme that we heard from folks. They were concerned about their homes, their community, and their friends and neighbors. And I got to spend a little time here with a few folks before this meeting started, and I heard the same common theme. Concerned about our homes, concerned about community, how am I gonna get to work, very same theme. And I can tell you, I had a few days to engage with this team, and I got a very good, I'm just gonna say, very sincere interest in doing the same things that we were doing on other fires. Doing the best they can to protect those values at risk that you care about too, your homes and your communities, your friends and neighbors. I can't help but want to pause here for a moment and commend the Sheriff's Office for taking the actions that they did. It's a tough decision to make, and they did it also on the Ridge Fire, very similar pre-evac. And it takes a long time, it's a tough decision to make, and I just can't help but say thank you to the Sheriff and the emergency services for taking on that task. I can tell you that we see a map on the fall wall over there, and there's another one over here. That's part of the whole story of what's going on with this fire. Those are all polygons of past treatments or current treatments
logging operations, timber operations, veg management of different kinds. You'll see the control lines that they're building here. Those are all part of the picture when it comes together to manage a fire, to prohibit its spread, and have barriers to spread. And I think that as we move farther on managing this fire, you're going to see how all those things kind of come together. So I do appreciate you coming here tonight. We do have a few more speakers, and that's really what I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, we're gonna try this again. Can you hear me? Better? I think it was me holding it. Let's go this way. So we're going to have time for questions right now. So if you have a question and you would like to ask it to anybody in this room that you see on this list, or any of the volunteer fire departments, or Stillwater, DNRC, we're here for you. So anybody have a question? I'll fill the time for a little bit. If you're shy and you don't want to come up to a mic, we have mics set up here. What we can do, oh, you have a question? Come on up.
Yeah, so they said they were trying to contain the fire in certain areas, but there were other areas that they were not able to contain it, and they were going to allow it to grow. Which direction are they going to allow that fire to go?
I think that's for Mandy.
I would be careful saying letting it grow. What we're trying to do is, this whole thing has to do with time and space. When the fire behavior, the fuels, the dryness, our time and space is very little. So we have to kind of give it time. We can't put people right in the wrong places. So we look at those places that it's better ground.
Yep.
Now that the weather's coming in, hopefully that subdues it. We're going to go in very tight. But we still have to make good decisions, even with machinery. As you know, you get an excavator, a grappler, or whatever it is out there, and the fire behavior changes. It takes time to get that piece of machinery out so we don't burn it up, get the equipment operator out. So those are the things we weigh as we go out there. So I wouldn't say we're letting it burn, we're just trying to find the best opportunity in there to get as tight as possible. We're looking at the places where it's gonna go primarily, and it is in this section right in here. LeBeau. It's a roadless area, it's hilly, we're not gonna do much in there. If it gets in there on a really bad day, we're gonna have to back off further down to better ground, the highway. So we wanna stop that head of the fire, that's our primary area. There's some better stuff on this north side. We've done some mechanical work in there. So it's prioritizing what you have. I kind of think about it, you have one shop crew. You got to put them somewhere. Where are you going to do that? We have more stuff coming. There's stuff we want, but we're probably not going to get. So we have to make those decisions where we put those pieces of equipment. But ideally, we prioritize where is it going to go. We know it's going to move to the northeast. So we're going to prioritize that, get that line in there, and then come back in the end. They're still mopping up. You still have to have a good anchor point. So we still have folks in the heel. Sometimes the guys want to be in the front where the action's at. You got to have folks in the back watching the tail.
Okay.
Good question. Yes, sir.
A comment from...
I think the mic is coming around behind you. Thank you, Ms. Pryor.
A comment from Manny, avoid that LeBeau in all possibilities. That LeBeau will trap you big time. And also a comment about Lincoln Electric, how important they are to us. Without Lincoln Electric, we have no telephone, no internet, no way of getting any communications.
I'll hit on both those, Jerry. You know Justin Caber. Anybody know the Caber family?
Yes.
He went in there on an initial attack fire. This was probably 15 years ago. It took him 3 days, he never got there. We ended up sending in a helitac crew. They rappelled down, got to the fire. I still tease him to this day. It's one of those areas where you go a half mile, have to go another mile to get back up. It's ridge lines, and I agree. And that's why we want to stop that fire before it gets to LeBeau, because it's not good country. So if you see Justin, you can tease him a little bit on that. The electric, we went yesterday and we pulled all the cooperators in. We had the power companies, we had Burlington Northern, we had the sheriff. We went around and talked about what is the primary value out there that's most important. And I'm sorry, the homes did not come out first. It was the electric. Because that does power a lot more than just that area. It powers all of Eureka. It powers communities that, tributaries that go off of that. We all have stuff that we need to keep running. So that was our number one value that we had to protect. I'm sorry.
Your resources that you have, will they be available for initial attack?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We have what we call a TFR. So that's a total flight restriction. So we have an area over the fire that we need to have command of the air. So we don't have private planes coming in as we have retardant planes. People aren't flying their drones in there. It's a safety issue. When we come to an incident, we also usually take over initial attack under that TFR. And this doesn't show this, but this goes pretty much this whole map. And then we go about a mile, I think it's 2 miles past 93, and then we come around. That is the area that we have initial attack under, but also with coordination with the state. They have some other values, so we coordinate with them. But initially, if we get a start underneath that area, we'll take it, coordinate with the Kootenai National Forest, Flathead National Forest, but we'll send our resources. We have them identified, helicopters, planes that we have in the air, because that is number one priority as well, keeping them small.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. And Melissa, I think, wants to respond to something as well.
Hi, I'm Melissa Brandon from Lincoln Electric. I just wanted to touch on Lincoln Electric's perspective of things as well as BPA a little bit. We understand how important the electric line is, especially that transmission line. We have 5,500 members, over 6,500 meters that are served by that transmission line. We are well aware of that. BPA is well aware of that. We have taken steps to prepare for worst case scenario, which we hope it never gets there, but there's materials that are set aside in the event that something happens. BPA has crews on standby to come over and help as well if something were to happen. We have the ability to get portable, more like substation scale generators that we could get in probably within 2 to 3 days. It wouldn't power our entire system, but we would be able to do things like rolling power, scheduled rolling power. So we are aware, we are taking steps to ensure that we are best prepared as we can if the worst case happens. But we trust these guys to do a good job and protect those lines for us.
So how far is the fire from the trigger point at this point?
I couldn't understand that. From what point?
How far is the fire from our trigger point or the power lines?
Oh.
So again, the highway corridor is what we identify because it does contain the railroad tracks, the highway, the power lines. This map doesn't show it, but we have a trigger point right in here. So what we look at is how far is that fire with the winds, how far is it predicted to run. We work with our fire behavior analyst, the IMET, and we try to predict that. It's hard, as you know, hard to predict. So we put it out, as we know, usually in this area or what we see, it's not uncommon for a fire to run 5 miles in a day, right? We've seen that, with the fires, Goose Fire, a lot of fires. So we went back and gave ourselves a good cushion, about 5 miles. So when it hits that, that's when we were going to start at least evaluating if we need to shut the power lines down, if it's imminent in an area, let Burlington Northern know. They've already been pre-treating. And then if we need to get a hold of MDOT to make sure we got closures on the highways, so smoke and flames aren't impacting that. So we gave ourselves a good window. But again, the evacuations are part of that. That takes time. It's got time and space. So that was a little bit earlier to get that done. But for the power lines, it's a trigger point to start thinking about it. And then we'll talk with the Lincoln Electric to know when we have to actually shut it off and what area to shut it off.
Any more questions? You have a question, sir? Yeah?
Yeah, in the 2 to 3 week time frame, what kind of chances do you see this moving north? You know,
I think we could have our fire behavior analyst answer that. This is Aaron Trimble, and he's our fire behavior analyst. For those of you who didn't hear it, he asked, how far do we think the fire could move in 2 or 3 weeks? Is that what you said?
well,
Or 2
yeah,
or 3 days?
you know, there's this weather system coming from California.
He can answer this perfectly for you.
Well, not perfectly. So, basically, like Paul was saying, we also employ incident meteorologists, and he feeds me the data to make a fire behavior projection. So he couldn't be here tonight, but I got his data. For the most part, let's just say he's got it right now. We got a 90% probability Monday and Tuesday of, say, a 3/4 inch rain event over those 2 days, which is a good wetting rain. We do go into a season. We do go in for the next several days of drying weather, but the fire is essentially going to be parked. It's still going to be burning in those heavy fuels because, as you guys well know, we still got 2 months at least of fire season in a normal year in this part of the world. So it's a significant season slower. The long-term weather forecast is basically calling for basically just standard, I would say, even chance of historical conditions. So drying, there's nothing in the weather forecast in 2 weeks that's going to say that this fire is going to get either hot or cold. For the most part, we go back to seasonal averages. So I foresee that the fire potentially depends on the suppression effort we have now this whole week, where we can basically go more direct. Again, Manny's been talking about the opportunities based on the road systems out there and also the topography and the fuel type. But we have an opportunity to get a little bit more tighter line with this fire and get more suppression at it. But in 2 weeks, I'm not going to say it's not going to be active again. This fire is going to be burning into the heavies well into the winter. You guys know that. But is it going to be moving? 2 weeks from now, probably not. I give it a high confidence that it's going to be parked where it's at, even with the dry weather. It's going to take, we get 3/4 of an inch of rain to an inch of rain the next 2 or 3 days, and then we slowly dry out. It's going to take a long time. In the north aspects, it may not even come back to burning. The south aspects is what's going to get basically the drying again. But it basically is probably in 2 weeks it's going to be parked. But again, the weather forecast models are very good for 3 days. They're 50-50 for 6 days, and flip a coin for beyond that. And you guys know that. That's essentially there's weather forecasting. I mean, I've lived in this country most of my life. Winter, summer, go in for Big Mountain for our ski trip, and essentially they call for a 1-foot snow dump, and it's 1 inch. You know, kind of thing. So, I mean, the weather is a very hard variable to predict. You guys know that. Right now, the long-term projections is basically flip a coin, basically even conditions, even chance that we'll get seasonal conditions. There's nothing out there that's going to come after this wet event, that this Hillary, it's a Hurricane Hillary right now that's coming up from the Gulf of Mexico or the Baja, California, and they're having a very high confidence it's going to wet this area. But in 2 weeks, I still say we're going to have a fire season, but it's going to be slow and get back up to speed again.
And then the issue of like northerly winds. I mean, because so far we're just seeing westerlies.
Most of the winds that are coming with this are southwest components, and you know, most of the winds in this part of the world, southwest. When we had that big push on the fire, it was essentially a classic dry cold front that came down, and the winds went from southwest to west, northwest, north, northeast. We ended this push from winds from the northeast, and what capped this fire for the most part is its own smoke, because we had poor ventilation and smoke from Canada. What's getting us right now is smoke from Canada, and this is going to keep smoking us out and putting a cap. The fire is not breathing right now, and it probably won't be breathing very well for at least a week, because of the clouds and smoke. So I'm sorry to give you a nebulous answer, but I guarantee you, I would like to know if our incident meteorologist can forecast the weather in 2 weeks, he wouldn't be here, he'd be in Vegas. So it is an art. They have 6 different models they use from different, they even use a European model. Like I said, the forecast models are getting better. 3 days is very good. 6 days, 80%, 60% a week. Flip a coin. It's very difficult. El Nino, La Nina, all those factors into it. So, yeah, all I can tell you historically is we're going to have a fire season through October is our normal year. That I can almost guarantee.
Thank you, Eric.
All right.
Good job. Okay, Eric does a great job explaining that, so thank you, Eric. What other questions? There we go.
So I apologize, I'm not very well oriented to that map. I have not had a chance to.
You will in a little while, so go ahead.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious to know, because the last that I saw, it was about 2 miles from any private property in Trego. I'm looking for an update on that and how the Trego border is looking.
Yeah, these maps are kind of hard to read. They're real small. Olney, you know where Olney's at? We got the paved road right off Olney that goes up. Pavement ends right here. There's a bunch of little lakes we like to fish in, camp in right here. And then we have the Martin Creek Road that goes up. Martin Creek Falls is right about here. Oh, it's up here. And then as we know, it gets up here, it gets a little steeper and right in there. Probably hard to see there. Upper Stillwater Lake, Lagoni Lake, Finger Lake right here. So I don't know if that makes sense. So there is chance, you know, obviously fire in here in this area. What we don't want is this area right in here, because that's, again, like we talked about, just rough terrain. It's going to be real tough for suppression actions. I don't know if that kind of answered your question.
Does that answer your question, or were you asking about actual distance from where we are today, or?
Yeah, so on the Trego side, where is Trego on there?
I think we're still up here.
I think you're off the map.
Well, you're right up here. There's Stryker right here.
Straight northwest.
Fair distance. Oh, yep.
So we're like 6 miles from where it started, but it's like we're up northwest. It did basically change like that. It helped with a lot of doing those solar assessments. I learned that tons of animals. How do we get, do they notify you easily, or how does that work?
The sheriff, you want to answer that one? Come on up. So she's asking, she's up northwest of the fire, and she has no cell coverage, and she has a lot of animals, and obviously a child. So she's worried about how much advance notice she might have, or when you would inform her, how you would.
Again, I try to stick to like a 5-day, I mean, this is all relative, but 5 days for pre-evacuation, and I like 48 hours to do an evacuation. That's for time or resource, everything else. We also have code red, do that kind of stuff. I'm a big door-to-door guy. I'm going to be honest with you. So again, if we get to a pre-evacuation somewhere, anywhere, I like to always tell the incident management team, okay, told everybody that, hey man, we looking at 5 days? Yep. Okay, well let's start talking to people, tell them what they can do. Stock is a big one, right? So how long did it take out? We got one went down in Browns Meadow, and we didn't have that luxury, but it was one of those things where we want to give people that advance notice on that pre-evacuation. So, generally speaking, if I have time, it's 5 to 2. There is some time that we get fires that I have to do more immediate, but we generally would deploy as many resources as we can immediately to get that. It's a good topic of discussion because that's where communities like this are great. We all know each other's neighbors, and I can tell you the first thing is if we can get in contact with one via cell phone, and somebody can run across the street and start telling their other neighbors. That's kind of the best way to pass information around here. So we count on that a lot from a lot of the communities we've been in, and it's worked very successful. But again, if we have that opportunity, we're going to do that. Portions of it is kind of like a 512. Don't worry, when they become teenagers, you're going to But again, we're gonna do everything we can. Now, fast moving ones are a little different. We try to go door to door as fast as we can, and then that's kind of more faster. So hopefully that's.
Is that good? Any more good questions or just any question? Any more questions? Yes, sir. Oh, hold on 1 second. We have a gentleman right here and then I'll get you, okay? Hold on, this gentleman right here, what's your question?
What kind of chances are crossing 93 on the other side?
What kind of chances are there it's going to cross 93 and go to the other side? Do you want Eric to take that? Go, come on up, Eric.
Me or him?
And then I'll get you in a second,
Right
okay?
now, guys, it's parked for the next week, and probably 2 weeks. We're talking how many miles? 5 to 10 miles to 93? And we do get those west-southwest pushing this fire when it gets going again. And we still have, we're in the third week of August, we've got the whole month of September into October. So we still historically have a fire season. Now we could string out, if we get these high RH days, low wind days, that's going to basically keep the fire parked. If we get little spritzes of moisture every couple of weeks, we need essentially a wetting rain every couple of weeks to keep this fire parked until the snow puts it out. So if we go back into a hot, dry, and after this week that we're parked, we go back into a hot, drying session, this fire can get active again, and then we're off to the ball games. We'll have less sun to heat it, for the most part, but we still, you guys know, it's still summer-like conditions in early September through mid-September. It's still a possibility the fire getting, so that's the best projection I guess I could give you guys at this time. And anyone else who's been here for many years can probably say about the same thing. So if it's October, I can give you better odds.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Gentleman in the back.
Okay, is there any fire history in and around the current fire area right now? Is there any chance it's gonna burn into the previous burn?
I'll let you guys do paper, rock, scissors. Who wants to answer?
I didn't see any recent fire history yet except 1910 in this area. The old growth that I've seen is just that. It's over 150 years old, the uncut stuff. So I haven't seen it, and I haven't looked recently, but I haven't seen any historical fire scars within the last, say, 20, 30 years. You go farther west, I was here at Red Bench in '88 when it burned. Of course, that's farther to the east in that area. So we had big fires there at threatened Coldridge. Moose Fire, I was on that. When was that? 2006 or something. Yeah. So I mean, that's the closest fire scars that I know of.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Yes? Oh, yeah.
Sorry, one more.
That's good.
The initial area that it started, I'm just curious, so is that still growing at all, or is it more toward only, and will all those roads be closed to the fall and stuff, or will it be open?
Did you hear that question okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all the roads that are basically just on that west side of it?
Yeah, like Sunday Creek and all those.
Basically from Jim Creek to I don't know,
Yeah, it's okay.
just from Jim Creek going toward the fire.
Where it started.
So yeah, those roads will remain closed. A lot of it's just for the security of the firefighters in there, the safety of the firefighters. I think back on Wedge Fire years ago, 2003, I believe that was. We actually had some jumpers in there. We had some, we didn't have crews, so we were putting explosive line in, because we didn't have the crews to put them in. We couldn't, it was too steep. And we had some family members that were in a truck, and they came around the corner while we were about ready to blast this line. So there's a lot of stuff going on out there. There's feller bunchers that are falling trees. We got skidders and stuff. So safety of firefighters and safety of the public as well. So we will keep those roads closed until we feel the safety of those folks that we can raise that. There's also, I think Seth said it well, it's hard to give folks certainty in an uncertain situation. This fire could still move if we don't get the weather, this and that. So we don't want folks in there, we don't know they're in there, and while we're pulling our firefighters away, somebody in there that has no idea. So we'll keep those roads closed as long as we can, but we'll also open them up as soon as we can. I mean, we know hunting season's coming, we know people's, hiking areas and all that, so we understand that as well.
Are there any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, for those of us that live kind of the farthest away that have been evacuated, we're on the 93 corridor, the northern part, and 93 corridor, what is it determined when you go home?
What will be determined when you get to go home? We'll have the sheriff answer that for you.
So there's a couple evaluations, again, we've seen this weather change, right? And so, like I said, tomorrow, we were kind of waiting for to see, I trust you, I really do, but he said. I'm just a messenger. There's a comment, he said, we put down, we knew this north wind that was gonna come in, so we kind of want to make sure today, we got through today. And then tomorrow, we're gonna sit down with the team in the morning, and then look at, probably send the crew back out to let everybody know tomorrow, if we feel like we got to stabilize the fire. Again, how do I say this? So when if I were to sit down with you and show you a big fire and ask you for 40 mile an hour wind, that scared me. And it was kind of one of those things where we didn't know where it was going to come out of that corner. So again, and I can understand, like going out of your home is probably the worst thing I probably would do besides the death of the family. And I'm going to tell you that we also want to open that up as soon as we can. Give you guys a free back and say, hey, have your stuff ready, and hopefully we get through November. So again, tomorrow, my plan, I'm calling in extra resources as well, just as a pre-prep, and then we're gonna try to get out and do that. We'll do our pre-prep at the end of the day. Hopefully tomorrow, I'll have some really good news for you, and I'll give you $1 for every prize. And I appreciate your education, I understand this is tough. But I look at my house and I go, I got a horse trailer, I got a boat, and I got all kinds of stuff, and I don't know if you and your spouse have ever tried to hook up trailers together, but you know, we talk. So, absolutely, hopefully by tomorrow, I can make that for you.
Any more questions? Did you point to somebody? Am I missing somebody? Stand up if I don't see you. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up, but I will tell you that the folks that have presented and some of the folks that didn't chat but that are representing different groups are all going to hang around until every question's answered. So with that, I thank you very much for taking time this evening. Have a great night and be safe going home.